December regular council meeting. I declare the meeting open at 6:06 and welcome members in the gallery, councillors and staff. I'd like to advise that the council policy to record the proceedings of meetings of council on digital media to assist in the preparation of the minutes and to ensure that a true and accurate account of debate and discussion of meetings of the meeting is available. This audio recording is authorised by the Local Government Meeting Procedures Act Regulations 2015. I'd also like to acknowledge country. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we meet today, the Tomagina people, and to pay our respects to those that have passed before us and their history and their culture. Thank you. I can't quite make it to this mic, but we'll be right. Okay, to begin with, the record of attendance, we've got a full attendance of councillors. There are no apologies, and the leave of absence previously approved are nil. Confirmation of the minutes of our previous ordinary meeting. Could I have a mover and a seconder on those, please?
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Councillor Hyland. Any corrections to those minutes are to be identified and agreed to at this point prior to taking a vote to adopt the minutes. Are we all happy with the recording of those minutes? Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item 2.2, the confirmation of the minutes of the annual general meeting.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyam and seconded Councillor Bramish. The same applies. Any corrections to the minutes are to be identified and agreed at this point prior to taking a vote to adopt the minutes. Are we happy with the recording of those minutes, councillors? Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Declarations of interest. Are there any councillors or staff with an item on the agenda tonight that they have an interest in they'd like to declare? Nil. Item 4.1, announcements by the Mayor. I just can't think that I've got anything to announce at the moment. Item 4.2, the Mayor's communications. There is a list of my attendances at various things since the last regular meeting. Someone like to move that they be received, please? Councillor Bramish moved and Councillor Fairbrother seconded. Any questions relating to those appointments? If not, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. We move on to item 4.4. Council note the following councillor workshops.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
And the up and coming ones there. So moved Deputy Mayor Dunyam. Councillor Hyland. Any questions? Actually, as we note there, tonight will be the last meeting before Christmas of councils. And just off the top of your head, Mr GM, the 8th to the 12th. When will the next workshop be after Christmas?
Through Mr Mayor, the next workshop won't be until early February. We'll have the council meeting, I think it's on the 18th of January, the 25th we won't meet, and then the following Monday after that. So I think it's, I'm going to say the 1st of February as a guess. Yep.
Thank you. Okay. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Public questions and statements. Responses to questions taken on notice from the previous meeting, they're listed. And we move through those until to where we arrive at tonight's section, and it goes like this. The Council encourages community participation in its meetings through the opportunity for public questions and statements. Consistent with core values of the Council, councillors and staff strive to ensure all people are treated with courtesy, fairness, dignity and respect. We expect residents and ratepayers to apply similar standards in their dealings with Council. As Mayor, it's my responsibility to maintain the orderly conduct of council meetings and to determine whether a question or statement is out of order due to use of offensive, objectionable or defamatory expressions, and I know the members of the public will show consideration and courtesy in their comments. Thank you. Firstly, we have some questions, Mr. GM. Mr. Hutchison, will you be first with your questions, please? And a statement, I understand, so you could stay there and deliver your statement after your question.
Am I on? Thank you. Good evening. Question one. Just wondering if the GM has been keeping his finger on the pulse lately. So when did the council last calculate the restitution costs for the Aldina Reserve picnic area and surrounds? What were these costs, and do you think that the restoration of the reserve is beyond the capacity of this council?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Look, at a guess, Mr. Hutchison, I'd say the last time those figures were calculated was probably about 5 to 6 years ago. We are currently reviewing those figures now, so anticipating the new year we'll have a revised figure as to what the rehabilitation costs may be. So I guess we will know more in the new year.
Thank you. In the Memorandum of Understanding with Sustainable Timbers Tasmania, can Council please advise whether the general community will have any input into the future direction of the reserve, or if only a select group of stakeholders will oversee this process, and what has Council and STT got on the table for the community?
Through Mr. Mayor, I can respond to that question if you like. The memorandum of understanding is yet to be drafted. So at this point in time, there's only a commitment to enter into the memorandum of understanding. So in the new year, the negotiation process will commence. We'll certainly take on board the commentary you've made there, and that'll be factored into the discussions. But at this point in time, the governance models, the manner in which the MOU will be delivered, and the content of yet hasn't been progressed. So that will again occur early in the new year.
Thank you. My statements, as some of you are aware, I've taken a small interest in understanding the rationale by which this council operates, since discovering that it doesn't really prioritise rural community facilities, including ignoring some of my requests. You went in secret in a closed meeting without any public scrutiny of the decision to sell the Pre-Linda Community Centre for next to nothing, in my opinion, lower than the value of the land itself, because you had let it become a ruin, a plan devised in 2011 by workers at this council who are still employees. Council has mismanaged its responsibilities, and we, the community, suffer from less funds and less opportunities. But never mind with those concerns, all you need is a bit more PR. So it's been the year of the public relation. Communications by this council on social media have really bumped up, posting on a diverse range of platforms in abundance. So I'll start with Twitter. I commenced tweeting about this council on September 17, 2019. I carried through until late February before refocusing. This council on October 7 restarted tweeting, resulted in approximately 9 tweets per month, with roughly 130 tweets from October 7 to mid-December this year. When else did council tweet or retweet? One time in January 2019, 10 times in 2018, one time in 2017, when Mayor Walsh talked about the Bow Harbour Beach foreshore development. But before that, was well over 100 times every year back to 2013. So Twitter, it's a big tick. Instagram. English media officially commenced in March with a social media presence, including Instagram in late March. On April 23 of this year, Council started its Instagram profile. 138 posts in the past 8 months, over 17 posts a month. Instagram, tick. Council's Facebook presence has seen a growth in engagement with followers as well as the number of followers. So a big tick for Facebook. Council's got a new website, ease of navigation and audio recordings that can be accessed at the click of a button. A dream come true for those of us interested. Big tick. YouTube. With some foresight, Councillor Courtney and former Councillor House gave this council 6 months to prepare itself for the digital world and live streaming before it became an urgent reality. Now residents can engage with what council is doing in real time with the meeting. So big tick for YouTube. Well done. Despite all these methods of communication with a municipality, there is still one big problem, and that's secrecy. You tell the community what you want them to hear and not what they ought to know. Of course, course, you say how great everything you do is, and you do a lot of great stuff. And you have staff dedicated to promoting everything that this council does. I wonder what the actual figure for public relations is now costing the municipality. What concerns me more is staff and councillor secrecy. Decisions made in workshops and closed meetings. We don't get to see the why in many cases, and we don't get to see the what in some cases. The Northern Prison expression of interest is a perfect example. What else has council got planned for this municipality that you won't tell us, or will only tell us at the last minute? Maybe that's what you think governments should or shouldn't do, or are required to do. And yes, there are some instances where confidentiality is important. I realise this, but you don't have to keep everything a secret, especially when you ask direct questions and sometimes refuse to answer. In conclusion, there have been a number of highlights. So, Councillor Hyland has offered to give me a history lesson. It's a nice gesture. Maybe I'll take that up soon. In March, Councillor Fairbrother sent me an email saying, "Stop sending me further erroneous correspondence." At the November meeting, he requested public information. Councillor Edwards has been reassured that I'm not out to get anyone, just trying to engage people into what is happening. In an email to me in June, Councillor Dunham told me to undertake more research and that young people should know their own limitations. So I pushed on, firing shots in the dark, knowing my academic career was beyond the reach of a commoner like me, saving the research for others more capable. We had a glimpse of the passion that Mayor Walsh brings to the table when he got out of his seat to tell me to sit down and be quiet, stop asking all of those tricky questions. Or was it a standing ovation? Not sure. I still haven't received a reply to my 12-page letter that I sent in response to the letter sent to me to comply with the Mayor's direction. I guess the council doesn't have much time for me, only to tell me to stop being such a nuisance. But I find it amusing that you expect compliance from me for asking questions and stating opinions at a public meeting, and threaten me with eviction if I don't comply, but you can let some property owners in the community not pay rates for over 10 years. I've probably done my fair share of criticising over the years, so I'll finish on a positive note. It has been fun, I will admit. It has been interesting. I thank everyone for being valued contributors to English media publications, because without you guys, there would be far less to comment and reflect on. So I thank you, and I look forward to 2021.
Mr. McCollum, would you wish to, Justin, would you like to come forward, please, and with your statements and your questions, please?
Okay, I'll do my question first. Given the recent public meetings and associated discussion at Council regarding planning, I attended a Burnie City Council meeting last week where they decided this was a similar issue they're facing as well, where councillors are somewhat bound of what they can say at planning meetings. So they passed a motion that next year they will take it to LGAT to push for an independent planning authority and remove the onerous from council. My question is, would Waratah Wynyard back a similar motion to possibly take to LGAT next year to generate strength in numbers and show the community that planning is a very important issue? That's my question.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I guess it's a difficult one for me to answer here tonight. Council hasn't discussed the content of the Burnie City Council motion, nor support or otherwise for that particular position, but certainly prior to the Legat meeting we'll need to do so. Again, I guess the best I can say is a commitment that that discussion will take place prior to the Legat meeting, and Council will then formulate a position as to which way they will vote, and part of that will be then whether or not they wish to formalise or otherwise their position.
That would be great, because I think strength in numbers to show that the community is being heard would be really good to take to LGAT. Okay, a couple of statements. In tonight's meeting you're going to discuss and hopefully approve $92,000 worth of grants under the Strive and Thrive grant program. As a business owner, I would like to commend Council on this initiative and thank them, as this grant will help establish a new experience for visitors in our region. I'm sure the other recipients of these grants, the business and community, will be much appreciated as well. The COVID pandemic has been very hard in 2020 and severely impacted a lot of businesses, including our own tourism business. So any contribution or assistance from Council is most appreciated. So I commend you on what you have done, and hopefully you all vote in favour of it. My my second statement, as a representative of Business Northwest, which is the former Chamber of Commerce of Burnie, we would like to engage more with the Waratah Wynyard Council and wider community to work out how we can promote and support the municipality to position economic growth for the region and beyond, and all working together. We have recently launched Burnie 2.0 and successful in getting $19,000 worth of funding for the Emu Valley Rhododendron Garden to put in platypus cams. We are also launching our first lighting project this coming Friday, where we light up a Christmas tree in Burnie. We would like to make a presentation to council, maybe at one of your workshops, to show you what we've been doing and what we have in plan for Burnie and the region beyond. So I'd like to see if we could possibly do that next year. Thank you.
Thank you. Another statement, Angela Cannell. Angela, would you like to come up to the microphone, please?
Good evening, everyone. I'd first like to thank the Mayor and the councillors for their time. Now, my name's Angela Cannell and I'm the coordinator at the Wynyard Foreshore Market. For those of you who don't know me, I'll give you a bit of background. I've been involved in markets for the last 15 years, either as a stallholder or a coordinator. I've been doing Wynyard for the last 2.5 years, and I've recently taken on the Burnie Farmers Market in the hope to repair damage that was done there. I was doing Steamfest for 5 years and decided it was getting a bit much, and I'd go and learn how to do events properly and started at UTAS. So I thought I'd take Wynyard on as an easier challenge. It turned out it was a bit more than I bargained for. Possibly underestimated the workload, but I truly love it. I think the market is amazing. The market is my family, and I'll do anything to protect them and make sure it continues and is part of this community. Now, I'd like to thank the Mayor, councillors, the staff, and in particular Chantel and Tracy, who I work closely with to ensure the market runs smoothly. They've been essential during our recent trials of COVID-19 restrictions. It's been essential to coordinate everything. It's been a very great pleasure, and I thank you all for your extraordinary work in protecting us all. Overwhelmingly, the feedback I received was positive. Most people genuinely support the council with the restrictions and everything we do with the market. The market is one of the most valuable resources in this community at a grassroots level. Now, I'm here today, firstly, to introduce myself to you all, and thank you for your service, but also to give you a bit of information regarding some posts that were put up on Facebook regarding the market, and I know some of you may have responded to those, so I thought I might clarify. And this is regarding the charity rules that recently were put in place. The new charity rules were designed to make things fairer for all stallholders. They were a collaboration between myself, councillors and stallholders. Now, at times during the year, any year, we have a shortage of stall sites, particularly in prime positions where people want to be. We can always go away to Kimmy's normally, but the prime spots are highly sought after. Now, during recent years with COVID restrictions and the fencing, as you're well aware, we were restricted to 36 sites. When we reopened with the fencing, it was difficult, and we wiggled people in wherever we could, but some were turned away. As we faced our peak season, the issue became more and more prevalent. Stalls were downsized so more stalls could be fitted in. But even with the reshuffle, we were still only managing to fit 48 stalls. The new policy allows for one charity spot. To date, 3 charities have been required to pay fees and have had no issue with that. The market has been 3/4 2/3 full booked on Tuesday. I open bookings on Monday. By Tuesday, 2/3 full. People ring me, they message me, they find me somehow. There's no reason they can't book a stall. Sorry. The market this past 13th of December, we had 58 bookings. And if it was not for the weather conditions, the wind mainly, there would have been no spaces in the main market at all. I would have had a few way down the end at Kimmies. Unfortunately, the new spaces need to be smaller than they used to be because we need to allow pedestrian access. So even though we've gotten the extra spaces, there aren't actually as many as it seems. Now, the issue we're having with the charity is because of a particular stallholder. Now, that stallholder contacted me once when the new rule was brought in. She was the second person to call me, and she was informed she was the second person. It was over Facebook Messenger. She was told she would have to pay for the spot. I then sent her a message to ask if she still wanted the site. There was no response. The space was left open for her, but she never turned up. Since that day, she has not attempted to book at all or tried to attend. Should she have tried to book any of those markets, she booked Monday or Tuesday, Wednesday, she would have got a site. Generally, I don't get a booking for the charity site till Thursday. People have volunteered to pay her stall fees. There is no reason she can't attend. Now, in her post, there are some inaccuracies I'd like to make sure you are aware of. The photograph that she included in the post was of our entrance into the market. It was not of a stall space, although there were some that were vacant, mainly due to whether they were fully booked. The post did not outline that we do allow a free charity spot. Just missed that altogether. She also stated that she had to pay for a site, but in reality, if she contacted us early enough, she wouldn't have had to pay. Later in her replies in the post, she stated that the coordinator got to decide who got the charity site. Now, that's incorrect completely. It is a first in, first served. If you don't book first, you don't get the charity site. Now, she's claimed that council hasn't responded, and myself, I'm aware that there has been continuous correspondence with this lady, and she has not been ignored. On the market day that she took the photo, she had not tried to book, but did attend, and did have conversations with stallholders, trying to convince them that she was being hard done by. In Australia, it's against the law for charities to force people to give charity. All this post is borderline enforcing you to give her charity. She has already had 18 months of free sites without any argument at all, and if it wasn't for COVID, she probably still would be getting them. Now, if she is paying a fee according to all charities, that is A, tax deductible, and B, can be taken out of costs. Now, stallholders have been understanding, they've been involved, they understand the changes we have had to do to the charities. Other charities themselves, although a little not thrilled, are happy to pay and understand our dilemma. The fee is not to pay for them to pay for the site, it's to allow others to have that site. I'd like to thank all of you for listening. If any of you want to know anything about the market, always call me, I don't mind. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, Angela. Okay, there is a couple more questions, but they relate to the planning section, which will be done in a few moments. That concludes the open section of the public questions and statements. Planning Authority items. We will now at 6:30 convene our planning section, and I just remind all councillors that we're acting as a planning authority, and now is the opportunity for those questions and statements relating to planning to be presented. So, Mr. GM, who was first? Mr. John Walker, is it? Yeah. Would you like to come forward, please, with your questions? Yep.
I'm just wondering whether council will approve a speed limit on Sampson's Lane for the proposed thing they're putting in.
Okay. Your question will, Mr. GM, we need to consider that in the future and get back to Mr. Walker.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I guess it's not a planning consideration for the matter tonight. To change any speed limit, council needs to recommend to the appropriate body, and then an assessment be taken, but it wouldn't be strictly a planning condition considered as part of the application before council tonight.
Oh, okay, so you're not going to change, you can't change the speed limit?
Through Mr. Mayor, the speed limit can be reviewed and altered, but not as part of the planning matter that stands in front of council tonight.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Rightio.
Thank you. Tara Donnelly. Tara, you have a statement. Would you like to come forward with that statement, please?
Discuss this. It's just in reference to our application for short-term accommodation at 17328 Bass Highway. We are aware that there's information on the council website stating that the current proposal that we've submitted is most likely going to be recommended to be refused based on a section in regards to us having agricultural land. Part of our property, we do have that land, but it's so small that for us it's not viable to use it as agricultural land. So with our submission, we're looking to put in short-term accommodation that would be eco-friendly. It would fit in with the surrounding landscape. We love where we live and we don't want to basically impact it too much. We would like to be able to provide accommodation not only to interstate and international travellers, but also people in Tasmania from Hobart and Launceston that are needing the escape. And we would, with that in mind, we would envision networking with local tourism providers so that we can showcase the local area because there is so much to do around here and also to sample. And then, so in regards to the speed limit John's talking about, we've had a conversation with him and we do think that's a good idea. I understand it's to be reviewed at a different meeting, but we just wanted to, say we are in agreement with that as well. I guess I didn't really have a question. It's just to let you know who we are and what our proposal is, and I'm not aware of the next process for our application, but basically just wanted to introduce ourselves and let you know more about us and what our application is about. Thank you.
Thank you. Yep, that concludes the questions and statements for the planning section, and now we'll move into the decisions in the planning section. And item first is 6.3, the visitor accommodation, 4 cabins located at 17328 Bass Highway, Boat Harbour. We have a recommendation there, councillors.
Mayor Walsh, I have provided councillors with an alternate motion to this for approval. I didn't know how the General Manager would like me to proceed, whether he would prefer me to go with the recommendation and I speak against that and do it in a roundabout way rather than be direct. Direct is more my style.
Through Mr. Mayor, no, you're welcome to move that motion as the motion, Councillor Fairbrother.
Okay then. Councillors, if you would allow, there is an alternate motion that I've provided you, which is on your table for approval. Essentially, it is a recommendation that I've asked the General Manager to prepare for our consideration. It's fairly self-explanatory. Please don't take it in a way that it is contradictory to our planners. I believe in this instance the planner's call is the right one for this area, and I would encourage him in future development applications to continue this approach of protecting the agricultural land. If I can get a seconder to the motion, I'm quite happy to speak to it.
You wish to move the alternate motion, Councillor Fairbrother?
Yes, I do, thank you, Mayor.
And I'll second it to allow the debate.
Move Councillor Fairbrother, seconded Councillor Courtney on the alternate motion. You're free to speak, Councillor Fairbrother.
Thank you. Before I do, can I just ask one question of staff?
Questions?
General Manager, I recognise section 57(1) of the Land Use Planning and Approvals Act. 57(1)(b) in particular talks about discretionary permits, and it states in the legislation that under the provisions of a planning scheme, the planning authority has some discretions, and it says in the legislation that an application may not proceed as proposed by the applicant unless a planning authority waives, relaxes or modifies a requirement of the scheme, or otherwise in its discretion consents to the use or development proceeding. Do I take that we can have a non-compliant application, and if council is of the discretion, we have the authority there to waive that particular provision? Is that my reading of the legislation?
Through Mr Mayor, and Mr Thornton may have some further commentary to add, but I don't have that legislation right in front of me at the minute. But I guess in any discretionary matter, council needs to justify provide supporting evidence as to why they're choosing to make their determination that they do. So I guess that's probably the best way they can respond to that. They need to support their decision making.
Thanks, Mr GM.
The planner doesn't want to offer comment.
Do you wish to speak, Mr Thornton?
Excuse me. Through you, Mr Mayor. I guess the Act itself doesn't provide that ultimate discretion. It provides for discretion to be considered under a planning scheme, and the planning scheme itself has, term escapes me, but provisions for how the scheme is to operate, and that sets out how you are to assess development applications against the scheme itself, and it calls into that discretions can only be made on discretionary matters and can only be made relevant to the performance criteria listed under those discretions. So no, it doesn't mean you can ignore a discretionary matter.
Thank you for that clarification. Council was encouraged earlier to get with Burnie City Council because we need to be seen to be taking planning seriously. I think this application before us tonight demonstrates why the local government is important, because it's until you start to understand applications that come before us that we can really truly make good decisions. To my way of thinking, this application is a good example because it raises a number of issues. one issue that the planner has recognised is that the agricultural land, and I think as a council it is good for us to consciously be aware of that when we're making a decision. That is an important consideration, and I don't take that lightly when I'm moving this recommendation. The land, as I understand it, is currently being and has been farmed, but it only happens because there's good neighbourly relations between the adjoining property owner and the current owner. On its own, this piece of land cannot provide an ongoing viable agricultural pursuit that is sustainable into the future. It's just the land isn't there. Our settlement strategy that we're considering later on in the evening has identified that we have a land shortfall in the village zone at Boat Harbour. It's, to use the proper planning term, we've exhausted all avenues for future visitor accommodation at Boat Harbour. So this to me is the perfect opportunity for us as council to go out into the suburbs of Boat Harbour Beach, which is this application at Boat Harbour, and provide visitor accommodation. And visitor accommodation in the rural zone is not a new phenomenon in this municipality. If you go from Wynyard, we've got Aquila Barn on Table Cape, we've approved Table Cape Resort, we've got Table Cape Farm, we've got the Wind House, and you can go further afield towards Boat Harbour. You've got Killynort Cottages, we've got a number of other properties, we've got Sandridge Estate, Boat Harbour Beach Holiday Park. They are all visitor accommodation which provides unique visitor experiences to people far and wide. And if tourism is the new trendy thing that's coming post-COVID, we need to be providing points of difference, and this proposal before us tonight provides that point of difference. It's sympathetic to the rural zone. It's got grass over the roof, so when you look from the highway out to the sea, it won't look as though there is an existing building there. The existing building that is there has been there since the 1970s when Tom Sampson built it, and it is closer to the side setback than what these units are. And I don't know, I've not heard, living in the local area, of complaints against the residential and the farming area or the farming use in that time. There is what's called the right to farm legislation, which gives the farmer an overriding use right, if you like, to undertake the primary industry activities on the land. So it does, to me, provide an innovative way, visitor accommodation in the area, and I'm sure as it with the other developments that we've got in the municipality, it will complement them. And I suppose, considering the application, it is a good one for council because we have two planners that, when assessing one application, have come up with two different points of view. And for us as a council, we're reliant on qualified advice, and it's just that the qualified advice provided by the applicant's planner suggests that the application is consistent with the planning scheme requirements. And it's on that basis that I'm recommending, or the council, I'm supporting the application for development as proposed, as we have the qualified advice before us that the application is consistent with the planning scheme requirements. So I would encourage you to join with me in supporting the application. Thank you.
Any further speakers? Councillor Hyland.
Yeah, I'll stay reasonably consistent. I think whilst I certainly applaud the application and the accommodation, and it's something that we really need, and I'm usually a strong pusher for that sort of thing on the coast. It is something different. I'm well aware of that, but it is right in the middle of our very prime agricultural land, and it is a very, very valuable resource, and it's going to become more and more valuable in the years to come. And I think if you take particular notice of what happens out there, it's a huge vegetable growing area there, right along on that beautiful volcanic soil. Then we do have the irrigation 24/7, and numerous other activities in the rural resource. And if we, the suggestion was made that the size of the land, it was unviable for them to obviously make a sizable living off that. But you've got to take into the consideration then that small piece of land may be just that extra bit that somebody else needs later on when we really get desperate for growing the food. And a lot of with the populations exploding around the world, they're going to start looking everywhere to source food and good food. And I think we're in the box seat, but if we intended to put a development like this on all those small unviable blocks, you end up destroying the huge agricultural blocks that we need. And we all know what's happening with the farming industry now, where you used to milk 100 cows on 100 acres is just no longer viable. You've got to have 500 cows and 1,000 acres of land, to make it viable. And they're always looking for extra bits of land so they can increase their farmland. And as I said, as much as I'd like the accommodation to go ahead, it's really something different, and we do lead in that area with different sorts of accommodation of late. But sorry, not for me. I've got to look after the rural resource, so I'll be voting against the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Hyland. Any further speakers? Councillor Edwards.
I'd like to go for the motion. I realise that it is agricultural land, but the land on its own is not going to be utilised as a full-on agricultural land. I like the way that it's a new eco experience, and it is going to utilise the agriculture all around it, and that will bring in tourism. I think we need to look at agriculture in different ways as well, to bring the experience or bring people to the experience and experience the land around them. So I'm intrigued to see and hope that this goes ahead, but it would be great to see this built.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Any further speakers? Councillor Courtney.
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what Kevin has said, because while I really, really think this is a great idea and I would love to support it, unfortunately in the planning matters, as a councillor I would like to support it, but because tonight we're a planning authority and we have to abide by the legislation that's put forward in front of us, and there are 2 points that unfortunately don't comply with the legislation, I personally would feel really uncomfortable in using discretionary power to set a precedent on that's overruling our planning officer, because I think that leaves council open for us to be able to have others come forward and say, well, we want to do that as well on rural land, and it sets that precedent. So as much as a councillor, I would just love to support this, and I would even, say I'd help you get funding for it. Because we're now in a planning session, and as a planning authority, I can't actually support it because it doesn't meet those other 2 requirements. So I'm very sorry, but that's how I'm going to have to vote.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Any further speakers? Councillor Brammy. Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
No, I missed Councillor Bradley. She was perhaps had a... Yeah. Councillor Bradley.
Mr Mayor, I'd like to vote on this proposal. I think it's a good for the area. As you probably remember, we passed a 40-hectare block in Banksia Park about 3 years ago, which was also rural resource land, and we passed it so that there was going to be 4 units built on there. So I think we need to pass this as well. We can't just say yes to somebody and then no to somebody else when we've got rural resource land. So I'm for the proposal.
Okay, Councillor Bramish. Thanks, Councillor Bradley.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, it is a hard one, and I guess we're here to make the hard calls. I'm going to support the motion, and the reason being is what we heard earlier, that the agricultural land and the property is not viable. Yes, you could say you could sell it to the neighbour, but will the neighbour give you a decent price for it? It all comes back to that. And I don't believe that this development will destroy the agricultural land. Yes, it might take up a percentage of it, but I guess the people's got to make a living. And if this is the way it's got to go for them, well, so be it. And so I'm quite happy to support the motion, the alternative motion that's in front of us tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Bramish. Any further speakers? Councillor Dunya.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. This council does welcome and encourage tourism entrepreneurship and development, and with the initial motion I was concerned about the issue of constraining primary industry use on the adjacent property to the south. I'm not sure whether that has actually been dealt with in this alternate motion, but I'm really quite intrigued with the proposal that these cabins are underground, that each cabin will have a sod roof, and that there will be some vegetation or cropping over the rooftops of these constructions. It's not a new idea. If having seen such developments in Norway, it is one way to encourage, I guess, environmentally well-built houses and as well as fitting in with the landscape. So in terms of the alternate motion, the wording here says further it minimises any constraint or interference to existing or potential primary industry uses on the site and on adjacent land as it is located in an area away from commercial cropping potentials. I understand, as Councillor Hyland said, we need every bit of land because of the need for food, and we must preserve it as best we can so that we do meet the needs of our people. This paperwork goes on to say the underground nature of the proposal minimises as far as practicable any constraint or interference of adjacent land. I'm quite happy with the alternate motion and I'll support this particular motion.
Okay, that concludes the debate. Councillor Fairbrother, you want to sum up?
Mayor Walsh, thank you, councillors, for your contribution. In response, I guess all I'd say is the existing house has existed or coexisted with the agricultural land there since the early 70s. Hasn't been an issue then during up to now, and I'm pretty happy that the two neighbours, the farmer and the existing landowner, who in this case is the applicant, have a good working relationship, and thankfully they communicate clearly, and I'm sure that if this application is approved, that there will be a good working relationship for the two of them, and it'll bring a number of benefits to the municipality. So I look forward to your support. Thank you.
Okay, the debate is closed. There'll be a division. I'll ask for a show of hands. Those in favour of the alternate motion, please indicate. Councillor Edwards, Councillor Fairbrother, Councillor Bradley, Councillor Bramish and Deputy Mayor Dunya. Those against? Councillor Hyland, Councillor Courtney and myself. The alternate motion is carried. Okay, that concludes our planning section for tonight at 6:55. Okay, matters raised by councillors. In item 7 on the agenda, there's an answer to matters raised by councillors. Their questions. We continue over to officers and the officers' response. The planning scheme amendments to Councillor Fairbrother, and we continue off. Now, councillors' questions received in writing nil. In this section, councillors' questions without notice. It is now the opportunity for those to be dealt with. Any councillor questions without notice? Councillor Courtney.
Through you, Mr Mayor, just in relation to Mr Higgins's request that we organise some public information sessions around planning, I think given the discussion tonight and the discussion that's gone on in Burnie and the recent meetings, that we should really consider doing so, holding public information sessions, because I think that as part of the consultation period that's out with the state government at the moment and that we're going through, that we have the settlement strategy that we're also going through, and that we also have major project legislation, that there's a lot about planning that we don't understand as councillors. Like, I still feel like I'm learning off Darren pretty much before every meeting. So I can't expect that the public would have any level of understanding that we have because of the, processes that we have to go through every month. I think this would better help us to engage with the community and all be on the same page about what we can and can't do as planning and where the planning changes are going with the settlement strategy, with the major planning. I think that it's a really good opportunity to engage with the community so that we can have a better understanding all round, because I think this is one of the areas that council tends to sort of fall down within communication, and it's majorly because of our role as legislators in the planning sessions, and I think that we just need to do a little bit better in that area. So I'd like to look at what Nick's put forward, Mr Higgins has put forward, and consider holding those workshops if we could. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Mr GM, do you wish to contribute to that request from Councillor Courtney?
Through Mr Mayor, there's not much I can add really. Certainly both through the introduction of the planning scheme changes and through the settlement strategy, there'll be, I guess, multiple consultation sessions that will be undertaken with the community. So in the first half of next year. So I suspect there'll be ample opportunity through those forums to have the interaction that Councillor Courtney and Mr Higgins are seeking. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr GM. Any further councillor questions without notice? Councillor Edwards.
Can I just ask a question on the forethought market? For the charities that have they had any outline of the new rules that have been in place for them all to understand where everything's
the changes that were alluded to earlier in the meeting are documented, I guess, in the booking form, or some of the forms that potential storeholders would use. But as to what discussions were taking place, as to what information's gone to those particular charities, look, I'd need to check that out. Yeah.
Thanks, Mr GM. Any further councillor questions without notice? Deputy Mayor Duniam? No? Okay, we'll move on to the next section, which is notices of motion nil received. 9.1, we have the draft livable Waratah Wynyard settlement strategy and a recommendation attached.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam moved. Councillor Fairbrother seconded. Anyone wish to speak?
Yes, please, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam.
In June 2020, this council began a community engagement process in the initial development of a settlement strategy for the towns of the Waratah Wynyard municipality. The purpose of this strategy is to increase the livability of each of the towns in this municipality And since June, Council has undertaken several rounds of engagement to get a sense of what people either love about our place or what people consider are issues that constrain local livability. This strategy is aligned with the Cradle Coast Regional Land Use Strategy and the Sustainable Murchison Plan. This is a very thorough and comprehensive settlement strategy that has been developed from community engagement, covering issues and challenges as listed on pages 40 and 41, for example, our demographics, public health and transport, etc. There are two parts to this recommendation. Recommendation 1 is for Council to endorse this draft plan, and Recommendation 2 is to facilitate a two-stage consultation process over 2 months commencing the 16th of December this year until the 19th of February next year. Council must determine tonight whether this document is suitable for public exhibition in order to garner comments prior to a final review and adoption of this document by Council in 2021. And I ask all councillors to support these two recommendations.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Daniel. Any further speakers? Councillor Fairbrother.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Council was erroneously called secretive at the public submission session earlier. I believe that claim was erroneous. I do so because much of what we have before us tonight has come out of council workshops, and whilst there is some concern in areas that we workshop various issues and we don't disclose what we've workshopped, to me this is some of the fruits of our labour that we workshop. And to me this document before us, or before the community, I think is the best, one of the best pieces of work that this council has come up with. And I don't say that lightly, but I do need to recognise our staff that have contributed to this document. I believe that they've gone out, consulted with the community, certain sections of it, and come up with the document that they have. What we're doing tonight is considering what we've come up with, putting it out to the community and say, hey, give us some feedback. Because in the area of planning, to me, this is more important than the local provision schedule. This, to me, is as I've said to you at workshops, this is for our community the light on the hill. This is what we want to achieve with planning. These are the outcomes that we want to have in our communities. So we've done some consultation with community, and I believe that our staff have captured much of the character of our towns within the municipality, and we're putting it out to the community to say, hey, have we got this right? Give us your feedback, please. And I don't know how we're going to do that, because if somebody said, hey, there you go, have a read of that, it's like, oh, come on, you got to be joking. Sure, there might be one or maybe two in the gallery that are keen and eager. Perhaps they need to put up their hand and say, hey, I want to be a councillor, because that's the way that you'll get to come to the workshops and find out what it is that we discuss. Because they are confidential sessions that it's like we have a number of concepts, ideas, and we can't go out and say, oh, this is what we're talking about, because it may not actually happen. I know, with respect, the General Manager's been doing a lot of legwork, I'd call it, in trying to get certain outcomes. We can't go out and say as council, hey, we're doing this, because a lot of the stuff is just that, confidential. And until we line up our ducks, if we go and make announcements prematurely, well, we raise the expectation in the wider community, and it's not a good look for all of us. So I would endorse the manner in which we've been conducting ourselves. I believe that some of our values are openness and transparency, and as an elected member I have confidence in the manner in which we release information, and if I need to reassure those members of the community that we aren't secret, because I know that perhaps I, like many other councillors that sit around the table, I don't mind speaking my mind, and I'm a fair brother, and I'm about fairness, and I don't mind going into bat for the constituents. I don't sit here and pander to council staff, even though they are nice people and it perhaps does get you a fair way down the track. However, in the overall scheme of things, we are here for the ratepayers, and I think that we need to reinforce the fact that, albeit the erroneous claims that are made in the public gallery, I think that as councillors we need to stand up for this council and the values that the council promotes.
Councillor Fairbrother, could I just have a little word to say just a moment? Look, could you get back to 9.1, the draft livable Waratah Wynyard settlement strategy, please?
Sure, thank you for bringing me back. The settlement strategy is one of the most important documents that we've come up with, and we're putting it out to public consultation, and I support the community and the suggestion that we need some champions within the community to get the word out there. Perhaps some of those in the gallery could perhaps use their media or medium to promote this document so that the word spreads widely and we get quite a bit of feedback back. Thank you.
Okay, any further speakers regarding the motion, the recommendation and the move that we have on the books at the moment? Any further? Councillor Duniam, did you wish to speak?
Yes, just very briefly, could I thank Councillor Fairbrother for his words, even if he did get off track there for a moment.
You sort of moved the motion, Deputy Mayor Duniam. Do you wish to wait until everyone else has spoken?
I can.
Yeah, would that be a good idea? Okay, thank you. Any further speakers before Deputy Mayor Duniam closes the debate? Councillor Bramish.
Thanks, Mayor. Look, I just encourage everyone to support this document, and as Councillor Fairbrother said, there's been a lot of work go into it, and it's a chance for us and the community to work out where we are heading with our municipality. I guess it's a moving document, so everything will change as needed, but I would encourage the community to have an input, and if there is a change, the community will be notified about it or asked to comment on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bramish. If there isn't any more speakers, I'll ask Deputy Mayor Duniam to wind up motion. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. As I was saying, thank you, Councillor Fairbrother, for your words. I certainly do agree with you about the erroneous comments. That might surprise you that we agree. But I do think that it is an amazing document, and thank you, Councillor Bramish, as well for what you're saying and for the support that we need to get this document moving so that the community are communicated with. We're not being secretive, as has been suggested, and we can get this on the table and start working for our community.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Duniam. That concludes the debate. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried unanimously. Okay, we'll move over to 9.2, the Survive and Thrive. This is part of our COVID recovery activation grants and for the community. And we've workshopped this. We've had a great presentation by the staff, and it is now here with a recommendation for us to decide on.
So moved, Mr Mayor.
And seconded, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam moved. Councillor Courtney seconded. Does anyone wish to speak?
Briefly, if I may, please, Mr Mayor.
Your turn as mover of the motion.
Thank you. As a result of COVID-19, Waratah Wynyard Council established these grants totalling a little over $91,000 to enable continuation, development and strengthening of our local economic activity. This comprehensive report refers to the high calibre of all submissions, together with clear details of successful applicant submissions. This project demonstrates clear and generous intent by this council of financial support for its business communities during the COVID-19 pandemic, Based on the information presented within the report, I ask that councillors support the recommendation for allocation of funding to the successful applicants as listed.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Daniel. Any further speakers? Councillor Courtney.
I just want to say that not only have the council officers done really good in preparing this report, and the General Manager, thank you very much for stimulating our local economy through the idea of the grants. I think that's a real kudos to this council. But I'd also like to say well done to the businesses, because the submissions that came in were obviously top-notch submissions, and the staff were really reflective of how good our businesses were at putting their cases forward. So good job to the businesses that put their cases forward and won the funding that we're able to offer tonight.
Thank you, Councillor Courtney. Any further speakers? Councillor Highland.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, it's a really good cross-section, I think, of everything. We got the business, tourism, hospitality, and community activation, and like when you can look at the golf club with a overnight van parking, to the butter making, and down to the Wynyard Garden Club. You know, it's really good, a really good mix. I think one of the most talked about things in the main street was when we were doing the civic centre down there, was how could we convince the two shop owners to knock a hole in the side of the wall. Well, there we've got one now. So, no, well done to the staff. We commend them on a good effort.
Thank you, Councillor Highland. Well, look, we had no speakers. We haven't had anyone speak against the motion.
Sorry, Mayor.
Yeah, that's all right.
On a roll.
Yeah, that's all right if you want to
No,
speak. But the reason I said that was we haven't had anyone speak against the motion, and we didn't want to be here all night.
Yeah, well, that's right. No, I'll just be very brief. This is great, and it's great. There's going to be some good things come out of this. I can assure you of that. And it's quite exciting. I'll let... See ya.
Yeah. Okay, as there has been no one speak against the motion, it's not necessary to close the debate. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried unanimously. We move on to 9.3, which is the management of public reserves policy and the guidelines. And there's a recommendation there that the council adopt the management of public reserve policy and associated guidelines with immediate effect. Councillor Highland moved. Councillor Edwards seconded. Any discussion? Councillor Highland, do you wish to say, you wish to speak?
Mayor, just touch briefly on the camping for public events, particularly around surf clubs, I think, and that sort of thing. I think everybody knows where we're going now and what the rules are. So
Very
I
good.
think it's really good.
Thank you. Any further speakers? No further speakers? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item 9.4, the review of the debt management policy. There is a recommendation there that 1, adopt the revised debt management policy, and 2, note the cessation of the financial hardship policy on 31st of October 2020.
So move, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Courtney moved.
Second.
Councillor Highland seconded. Any debate, any speakers? Do you wish to speak, Councillor Courtney?
I'd only just like to say I appreciate that the staff have actually considered to continue financial hardship, not so much in a policy, but as part of our debt management policy. I think the last year has shown us that we need to be a little bit more considerate and giving in people not being able to pay when they hit through tough times, and I think this council's done the right thing this year, and a lot of the motions they've put forward to be able to help the community and the economy do well during a very difficult time. So I appreciate that we've allowed the introduction of the financial hardship policy, and it has sort of reaped some rewards and better facilitated relationships between council and debtors, and I think it's great that we're going to keep part of that as part of the debt management policy. So that's why I support the motion.
Thank you. I believe we all concur with your comments. Are there any further speakers before I put the motion? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Be quick with that one. But 9.5, the award of the contract for construction of the Wynyard Sports Centre change rooms. Moved Councillor Fairbrother.
Second that, Mayor.
And seconded Councillor Bramish. Any speakers? We've workshopped this one really well, and we know where we're going, and I think it's a great addition myself to a sports centre that's been standing there since the 60s and long overdue to level the playing fields in relation to the facilities now required for male and female participation of several teams on the one night. Councillor Fairbrother.
Yeah, I endorse those comments, Mayor Walsh. Thank you.
No worries. Okay, any further speakers before I put the motion?
Just, Mr Mayor, a bit of history, I suppose, the fact that that building was constructed by volunteers.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so it's really served its purpose.
Yep. Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.6, the financial report for the period ended the 30th of November. There is that the council notes the financial report for the period ended. Do you wish to move that, Deputy Mayor Duniam?
Yes, thank you, I will.
Do we have a seconder for that motion, please? Councillor Fairbrother. Are there any questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. 9.7, the senior management report. That council note the monthly senior management report. Would someone like to move that we note that? Councillor Courtney moved.
I'll second that, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Duniam. Then note the monthly senior manager report. Any questions regarding that item on tonight's agenda?
Mr Mayor, I've got a comment to make about where the GM attended online briefing on Tasmanian Drive project, the Northern Forage Trail. And I'm not sure how familiar the rest of the council are with this particular drive project. The roadside signs erected throughout the north are very disappointing as they are on the small side, a darkish green background with white writing stating only the Northern Forage Trail. I believe they're uninspiring to look at and tourists may miss them altogether. By comparison, the Heartlands Drive, which is central Tasmania, it's presented on a much larger sign with more engaging background. The Tasmanian Drive Journeys concept is a terrific tourism initiative, and these include the Southern Edge Drive, Northern Forage Drive and Heartlands Drive. I assume that these drives are funded by the state government. The point I'm making is that, one, in checking the Northern Forage Drive website, Wynyard has been entirely missed off the map. And I've also noted that Launceston's not on it either. So anyway, we're only talking about our municipality and we've been missed off the map. And the road signs, in my opinion, are somewhat obscure and could be improved upon. I'm unclear about how much consultation was made with each municipality in the development of this project. And I'd really like to know who actually made the decision that Wynyard or anywhere else in our municipality is not worthy for inclusion in the Northern Forage map. Maybe the GM can provide some background on this. And it may also be a benefit for our GM to contact the Tasmanian Drive project officer, expressing our disappointment with emphasis on the points that I've raised.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Mr GM, could you address that one, please?
I can. Through you, Mr Mayor. Firstly, in relation to the website, we have certainly made submission to the fact that Wynyard, or in fact no location in the Waratah Wynyard municipality, has been included on the Northern Forage map on the website, and we have received assurance that that will be remedied, so that should occur soon. In relation to the signs that you've seen, I guess there are two stages of signs. The signage that's been rolled out at the moment, I guess, is the smaller, I'll call it reassurance signage, if you like, to I guess inform travellers that they are remaining on their destination. There are larger signs to come, and I think there's only a couple of variations of those. I know there will be one in around the Rocky Cape area, Sisters Hills type space, and one I believe in the Lillico Strait Devonport area. They're going to be the two major signs. So more to come in that space, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Mr GM.
Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, I will add that we as officers, I guess, had a briefing around the location of the signs. So in terms of we were asked to comment around the location and the number, so we did have some input into that. Just wanted to make sure you're aware that that was the case.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I've got a couple of other, one question and one point to make. On page 1991, it's good to note that our successful community conversations will recommence early next year. So I think that they're a great way of letting our community know exactly what we're doing. And I've got a question for the GM on page 92, the Somerset Sporting Precinct. Is there any update on this working group, when it may commence, or even if it is going to go ahead, please?
Thanks, Mr. GM.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, it will go ahead. I guess there's still a range of preliminary and background information being sought at the moment. So, as the comments indicate, from the Somerset Sporting Precinct point of view, there's been some preliminary discussions with the Department of Education, with the primary school, with a number of other key stakeholders. At the moment, spatial analysis is being done and some costings, I guess some financial implications. So once that gets to a point where the group has some information to work their way through, that group will be convened. Clearly not in 2020, but hopefully not too far into 2021.
Thank you, Mr. GM. Any further speakers? Councillor Edwards was first.
Yeah, I'm excited to see the community conversations on again. The only disappointment is that due to my new work commitments, that I'll be an apology for the first 6 of them. So I can't wait for the later half of next year where I can attend them all again. So.
Thank you, Councillor Edwards. Councillor Fairbrother.
Question on page 95, item 7.3.3. The building and planning statistics. When reading this, I had thought if that information was sensitive, perhaps closed session reporting may be appropriate for that particular item, just as a suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. If there aren't any further speakers, did you wish to speak again, Councillor Fairbrother?
I do have another one, Mayor, if I can. Can't find it. It was in, 8.2, third one down. Action has not yet progressed as waiting on Councillor Bradley to provide clarification on the matter. Is that still current? Because I did note that was there some months ago.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that remains current. Councillor Bradley, I guess, was seeking clarification around a couple of matters, and at this point in time, we've just held that matter in abeyance until Councillor Bradley is able to provide the information that she has expressed.
Thanks, Mr. GM.
I don't know, Mayor, whether through you to Councillor Bradley, is that still pending?
Thank you.
Yes, it is, Councillor Fairbrother. We're still waiting on information from Hobart. So they've got their sources down Hobart. They're looking into it. So we don't want to make the mistake of calling something Foster's Road when it's not actually Foster's Road. It could be some other road. So we need to clear.
I think the question's been answered. We are not here for a debate on this matter. I think the question's been answered. It's still in abeyance, the decision. Thank you. Any further speakers regarding the senior management report before I put the motion? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Item 9.8, minutes of other bodies and committees. 9.81 is Audit Panel Committee on the 10th of November. The minutes and that are there of that, and a recommendation that we note the unconfirmed minutes and that the annual work plan for the Waratah Wynyard Council Audit Panel, and note the results of the annual performance questionnaire for 2020. We have a motion.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyan moved. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Courtney. I'll ask for any input into the matter. Is there no speakers? Any questions? I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. We are now at the stage to where the meeting will soon be closed. Matters proposed for consideration in the closed meeting. They are listed there. Would that the council resolves by a majority that the matters listed below be considered in the closed meeting?
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Dunyan.
Second, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Highland. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Now the closure of the meeting to the public at about 7:25. The council resolves by an absolute majority that we go into closed meeting to the following matters at 7:25. We have a move and
So
a second.
moved, Mr Mayor.
Deputy Mayor Daniam. There was a photo finish. Councillor Courtney. I'll put the motion. All in favour, please. Aye. Against? Carried.